The first day of COP28, member countries agreed to make operational loss and damage fund that is meant to compensate countries already dealing with climate change to be based at the World Bank but managed by an independent secretariat. Commitments with at least $450 million have already been made by countries, though billions of dollars are still needed to meet its purpose. What is the Climate Loss and Damage Fund? Well, Francesca de Gasparis is Executive Director of the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute, joins us live now from the summit. Thank you so much for your time, and I apologize for butchering your name. Maybe let's get your reaction first, on the most significant agreement on the first day of the summit, the Loss and Damage Fund. How significant is this endorsement? And of course, there are concerns, that are centered around the right funding model of this, that will make a significant impact.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you and everyone watching SABC. We feel that it's a great achievement. It's significant. It's meaningful. The Loss and Damage Fund is meant to be providing resources for those most affected by climate change, and that's happening now. So places like KwaZulu-Natal, eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, where Cyclone Idai hit. There's communities that have really suffered due to the impacts of climate change, and that's what this fund is exclusively made for. However, of course, there's a lot more that is actually concerning about the fund as well.
And speak to us about those. What are the concerns, Francesca?
Well, I guess, for example, let's start with the amount. It is a significant amount. It's almost $430 million. However, if you look at our host country, their oil profits from last year alone was up by 33%. And this is just about half of their oil profits for last year. So if you compare what's happening in the fossil fuel industry in one country alone, with this fund, you'll see that it's highly inadequate. What we really need is billions and billions of dollars to be released towards loss and damage. There's also issues with the fact that this is coming from the World Bank. The monies are going to be channeled through the World Bank, and that's going to have an impact on who can access the funds and how there will be access. I think affected communities really need the fund to get directly through them. And these funds need to be done in grants. The World Bank is known for providing loans and often monies that are already pledged for for other issues. So the funding needs to be additional, it needs to be in grant format, and it needs to be new. So it needs to be funds that we haven't heard about in the past. At climate change conferences, funds are pledged, but they're already existing funds in the pot, but now they've been put towards loss and damage, and that's a concern.
So you are in Dubai. I would imagine that you've also had the pleasure of listening to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who spent significant time just speaking about South Africa's just energy transition, for one, and again pressing on the issue of funding. How likely is South Africa going to reach its targets, and implement an action that is sustainable for all, especially given the fact that we are experiencing our own energy crisis?
Absolutely. Well, I've just come from a side event where the President's Climate Commission was presenting, and they were saying that we've got about 1% of the funds that are needed for a truly just energy transition. So the ambition is not matching what is actually needed in reality. And of course, those in the global south, South Africa, and other countries that are going to be most impacted by climate change really do need more support to do this transition. So it can support those who are most affected. We're here in Dubai with a network of state organizations that look specifically at climate justice, the ACT Alliance and others, who are looking at these issues, following the negotiations very closely, looking at how loss and damage and global stocktake, all things that really will affect our just energy transition. So it's super important for us that we I see greater ambition, especially from those who are historically responsible for climate change, and that's really the global north. The polluter pays principle is what we're looking for.
And I mean, just to your point, we have seen the effects of climate change, on poor nations, including ourselves, whose carbon footprint is low, but there are countries who face the brunt of rising sea levels, flooding and droughts. We've also experienced that, whereas rich nations, whose industrial growth has resulted essentially into a climate crisis but are seemingly dragging their feet when it comes to, for example, the Paris goals and setting more aggressive targets. What conversations would you like to see, happening at this conference that will see tangible agreements being made, apart, of course, from the financial issues that we've been talking about?
Oh, I've been attending climate change conferences for a long time, and coming to this one here in Dubai, it's in an expo center. It feels like it's in an expo center. There's a lot of aircon being used, a lot of spectacle, and what we really want to see happen is for us to be focused much more on the business of the climate change conference. Many people who attend these conferences have observer badges. Those are people who are from NGOs like myself. The observer badge should allow you to observe the negotiations. Party badges allow people who are part of government to be part of the negotiation process. What we're finding is that despite us being at a very big expo center, when we come down to the actual business of the climate change negotiations, there's not enough room in the rooms for observers to be there too. That's really unacceptable. We need to get back down to the business of these. It's fantastic that it's become such a mainstream global event. I heard that the Brazilian president came here with 2,000 people.